Yeah, Ravin, now am I audible?
You're audible now, sir. Great.
Oh, great.
With that, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to welcome you all once again. This is Gasification India 2021, and we are at technical session waste to energy session number 3. We're talking about technological pathways to leverage the carbon-based inputs to advanced biofuels and bio-based chemicals. And it truly is an honor to introduce you to the panel. We have Mr. Suhas Bakshi, CEO Biofuels Circle. Thank you so much for joining in, sir. We'd like to also extend the gratitude to Ramakrishna YP, member working group on biofuels, MOP and NG. Thank you so much for being here with us. Of course, we have Dr. D.K. Tuli, former DBT IOC Bioengineering Chair. We also have with us Mr. Sangeet Jain, General Manager, Lanza Tech, and Mr. Vasudev Joshi, Vice President and Business Head Unit, Raj Industries Limited. So that's the panel for you all. And as I said earlier, this is going to be an absolutely interesting conversation, and we are thoroughly looking forward to it. So I'll hand over the screen to you, gentlemen, and let you take this conversation forward. Can I invite Mr. Bakshi to start the conversation?
Good afternoon. I hope I am audible. Good afternoon, everybody. It's an absolute pleasure to be part of this panel and talking to this group on a subject which is of interest to almost everybody nowadays, not just this industry, but almost everybody who is concerned about environment and what's happening to the carbon footprint that we leave behind as an industry. I'm going to share a presentation, so let me know when my screen is visible. So I hope my screen is visible. It will be nice to know from somebody whether you are able to see the presentation.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Thank you so much. So ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to talk about the challenges and opportunities in biomass usage. As was said in the introduction, I'm one of the co-founders of a company called Biofuels Circle, and we have set up an electronic marketplace for biomass in India. Why is it that we went about setting up an electronic marketplace? And answer to it is, the wastage of biomass that one sees in the country is primarily on account of structural constraints. And these bottlenecks which arise on account of structural constraints is what we wanted to solve. What are the bottlenecks that we saw? We saw 4 very specific bottlenecks. One is that we have fragmented rural resources. All of us know about it. Second, and extremely important, is that the suppliers who are farmers have very low incentives in the current structure to actually participate in this supply chain. Added to that is the seasonality. The biomass is available for only a few months every year. And last but not the least, both sides of the supply chain, the supplier side and the customer side, have limited access to each other. So what happens because of that is that the small spread out farms, make aggregation very difficult. Low incentives, makes the farmer shy away from participating. Seasonality indirectly leads to high cost of storage, and access essentially does not allow rural suppliers to have a direct access to industrial buyers. And I think, going a layer further, what one would observe is maybe the way to solve a problem which is combination of all of this and to accelerate the adoption of biomass as a fuel alternative, may require a solution which is combination of several things. And when we started working on that, we looked at how does one create a direct participation model. If we say access is difficult, is it possible for us to allow an access to anybody who thinks they can supply biomass and anybody who thinks they want to buy biomass? How do we help create decentralized rural businesses around biomass? And how do we make sure that there is reliability and assurance built in the ecosystem? Because in the end, if you are going to get industrial feedstock or industrial fuel supplied from a relatively unorganized rural supply chain, how do you build in assurance and how do you build in reliability? So we looked at several solutions. First and foremost, we built an online marketplace. Like I said, Biofuel Circle has built an online marketplace, which could, create multiple local markets across India. Biomass is not only seasonal, but biomass is clustered. Biomass is difficult to travel. So how do you make sure that there are local markets which are created, just like Uber creates a local market or Zomato creates a local market? Can we create a local market for biomass? And Biofuel Circle as a platform ended up doing exactly that. How do we motivate decentralized rural businesses through structure of farmer producer companies or farmer producer organizations to look at creating biomass specific businesses, biomass aggregation, biomass storage, biomass briquetting, pelleting, baling as a regular year-round business activity which generates employment and which creates economic activity in the rural areas is the second thing that we looked at. And the last but not the least, we looked at creating a reliability ecosystem which has systems and processes. Look, as industries who set up refineries, who set up manufacturing units, we are all, we are all familiar with the ISO 9000s of the world and systems and processes which assures reliability and quality. How can these small rural businesses have access to processes which will guarantee quality? And that's the third thing that we started working on. Now, this is not technology in its pure sense, but this is adoption of technology, adoption of tools to deliver for the technology. And what we essentially ended up looking at is, let's start looking at a biomass consumer, a major biomass consumer, and can we, in a 150 to 200-kilometer radius, create a presence, which is of high intensity biomass development, biomass growing areas? Can we have a bunch of FPO aggregators? Can we have a bunch of FPO storages, a bunch of FPO processors, and a bunch of FPO laboratories? And can we create this ecosystem which has access to a, a technology platform? And what does the technology platform do? And I'm going to briefly tell you what does this technology platform do. Once again, for those of us who come from organized sector, ability to discover who can be my buyer and seller, ability to structure a deal and get into a transaction with somebody, ability to schedule deliveries, ability to actually organize transportation and get delivery done, ability to raise an invoice and ability to pay and receive. If all of this can be done in a digital environment, a little bit like if I want to order lunch right now, the easiest thing for me to do would be to open my Zomato or Swiggy app, and I look at what are the choices around me, who delivers me fast, what is up to my appetite. I select it, I place an order, I start receiving information on how long does it take for my lunch to arrive. Once the lunch is arrived, I have an option either to pay to the person who's delivering to me, or I have probably already prepaid for the lunch. I get a bill. My payment is received by whoever is my service provider. Now, can we make procurement of biomass as easy as this? A few clicks and can this happen? We actually created a platform which does exactly that. So what does this platform allow us to do is, it allows you, if you are in the business of buying and selling biomass, it allows you to connect with each other, to promote your business, a little bit like what you do on LinkedIn. Most of us have LinkedIn profiles. We promote ourselves, we promote our companies. You look at the ratings and evaluation of other companies. Look, behavior of a particular company, a particular individual on the platform always leaves data footprints on the platform. So, for example, does this company deliver in time? Does this company deliver as per the quality recommendations? Does this company pay in time? Does this company keep on changing the schedule every now and then, based on which a supplier rating and a customer rating is is algorithmically calculated. A little bit like what Uber driver rating or Uber customer rating is, but there the driver and the customer give rating to each other. Here the rating is algorithmically driven by your behavior on the platform. You're able to then enter into a marketplace. You're able to get into entering a marketplace is a little bit like entering a mall. Look at who is selling, who is buying, at what price is a certain commodity being sold. Do I want to actually buy from what is on the offer? Or if I am a large organization and I want to conduct e-procurement using platforms such as auctions, floating an RFP based tender, etc. Once again, those tools are available. So, depending upon organization, depending upon who you are, the platform provides a way to buy and sell things. Once you have the deal, you are able to look at what your storages are. How do these deals impact your storages? You can plan transportation, you can schedule deliveries based on which the platform has a network of transporters which delivers to you the material as per your scheduled delivery. Exactly like you ordered, your masala dosa on Zomato. It gets delivered when you want it, and as per the payment terms that you desire. Once it is delivered, even before it is delivered, the assurance service comes into play. You can trace and track your deliveries. You can look at who's supplying, what is his quality record. You can look at quality certifications. You can look at test reports, associated with what is being supplied to you. All this data is digitally available and accessible. Once the delivery is started, your invoices, all the papers which are going to come to you, these are digitally accessible to you. So all paperwork is available to you in a digital inbox. You can pay online using Razor Pay, and you can complete the transaction. And to top it all, what you also have actually is a trade finance ability. So if I'm a seller and I'm going to get paid from the buyer, 15 days from the date of supply or 30 days from the date of supply, there are trade finance service provider like banks and NBFCs on the platform who could be doing invoice financing to you, or who could be doing inventory financing or trade financing to you. So all of this contained in one box is the technology that we have deployed. What we see is now close to 150 subscribers on the platform, transacting more than 3,000 metric tons of biomass every month. On an average, we see 2 to 3 transactions every day. Currently, the activities are in Maharashtra, Tamil Nadu, and Gujarat, but we have a plan to expand and cover rest of the country, as early as possible, and make sure that this technology that we have developed provides the necessary acceleration for adoption of biomass as a fuel. And last but not the least, the impact that a technology like this is able to create is it can create awareness and visibility for the biomass trade. More and more people can become aware of what's possible and what exactly are you supposed to do if you want to use biomass. Not just about what are theoretical possibilities, but actual business opportunities. A rural infrastructure, we've been able to promote a rural infrastructure based on farmer producer companies, which is creating an ecosystem for small entrepreneurship in rural areas. This has clearly become a digital platform for biomass quality. How do I link a commodity to quality? How do I keep on looking at the quality records associated with a particular commodity? Have an access to a huge data bank associated with quality. Take decisions which are driven by quality. Once again, that's possible on the platform. A phenomenal possibility around analytics. We already have price curves for various commodities. We do have an ability to guide buyers and sellers on decisions that they should be taking based on analytics, which is available on the platform. And last but not the least, in this relatively unorganized space of rural businesses supplying to industrial businesses, we've been able to introduce a dimension of assurance and delivery service, which is possible primarily on account of the fact that digitalization allows us a technological reach. And so to start this session, what I wanted to share with all participants is that if digital technology is used around the nature, which is biomass available with us, we have an opportunity to create local jobs. We have an opportunity to, of course, give a big boost to rural economy, help scale the green energy, and last but not the least, help our country in its desire to create a strong energy security. So that's the Biofuel Circle platform for you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for the opportunity made available to me. And I look forward to other panelists on the platform sharing their thoughts. And if at all if there are any questions, would be happy to answer them. Thank you very much. You would want to move to the next speaker?
Okay, can I start?
Yes, please. I'll go on mute. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Let me start sharing my screen. Yeah, can you see the screen? Hello?
No, sir, not yet.
Oh.
Not so far.
Not yet, sir.
Yes, it is now visible, sir.
Oh, great. Yeah, thank you very much for inviting me to this session, and thank you very much for all the panelists on this particular session. The session is very clear that we're looking into the technological pathways to leverage the carbon-based inputs for advanced biofuels and bio-based chemicals. What I'm going to do today is that essentially looking at the kind of wasted resources. Mr. Bakshi did mention about some of the challenges that are there, when it comes to the supply chain, organizing the supply chain, and the kind of solution that Biofuel Circle has come up with. What I'm going to do here is that just trying to throw some light on the different types of wasted resources that we have in our country, like the quantification of it, the kind of energy potential it has, and some of the technological pathways and some of the challenges that we have and how we need to address. And in order to completely utilize the kind of potential that we have, what are the kind of steps that we have to really take in terms of technology, as well as in terms of priorities and in terms of policies, and trying to create an ecosystem for the country. When we look at the kind of wasted resources that we have in our country, India being an agricultural society, an agrarian society, we have quite a bit of agricultural residues which are generated, and we all know that quite a bit of that is being either wasted or being burnt on the farmer field itself for various different reasons. And the rapid urbanization of India has also resulted in very huge quantities of MSW and sewage, and which are at this point of time not really scientifically being handled. There are some technologies which are being mapped onto it, and we are trying to recover some energy or some material out of this. But by and large, most of the municipal solid waste and sewage water goes untreated, and we are not even trying to recover either the energy potential in it or the kind of materials that could possibly be recovered. And of course, with 130 crore kind of population that we have, every single home generates, and all the restaurants that we have across the country generate so much of food waste. And, that is something that is being wasted at this point of time. It just gets added to the municipal solid waste. Say, just to give you an idea, the city of Bangalore, we had done some study a few years ago, and it generates nothing less than 3,000 to 4,000 tons of food waste from homes and restaurant every day. When you are also looking at some of the industries such as sugar mills fruit processing industry, rice mills, and again dairy, different types of waste that gets generated, and we have no systematic way of utilizing this waste that we generate also. And then other important aspect is the kind of animal population that we have in this country. We have cattle, poultry, the horses, sheep, various different range of animals. The kind of the dung that they generate, the poultry litter, etc. This also goes most of the time, uncollected and unutilized. Coming back to the agricultural residues, incidentally, I was the chairman of the study steering committee that was constituted by DST TIFAC, where we had an opportunity to make an assessment of the agricultural residues that are being generated. We only selected about 10 major crops, and from these 10 major crops, we realized that the total agri residue that is being generated is in excess of 1 billion metric tons, and almost about 200 to 300 million metric tons of what we can call as surplus biomass is being burnt on the farmer field across the country. So this is something that we have to really look into. And this study, as I said, covered 10 crops, and a report was released on 31st October 2018. It is available at DST TIFAC. Further, this data was used, and we engaged National Remote Sensing Agency to develop some kind of spatial information on that. We have 1 kilometer by 1 kilometer grid across the country, covering almost the entire country. It was 662 districts when we did the study. I think now the number of districts has gone up to almost about 700. And a portal also has been developed. And I have just provided the link for the portal here. On this portal, you can go and at any specific point, you can define a 30 kilometer, 40 kilometer area surrounding a specific location, and you will be able to download the data on the different types of feedstock that is being generated, and the agricultural residue that is being generated, and how much is the surplus, what is the energy potential, etc. That kind of information with a lot of other demographic details being superimposed on that. This is available. And then we had also initiated some work on characterization of this biomass. Indian Institute of Petroleum and National Institute of Interdisciplinary Studies in Trivandrum. Together, they have developed the necessary protocols for characterization of the biomass. Now, the second phase of the study has to be taken up, where we need to make this whole study dynamic and also cover more crops. And even we have to engage the NRSC in developing signature for many more crops that we would like to bring it under the study. And then looking at different technologies based on the characterization of the biomass, how these technologies can be mapped onto different types of biomass. So this is the work that is pending at this point of time. And we have already initiated this work to be taken up under the leadership of Ministry of New and Renewable Energy. Now, just this slide captures some data with regard to different types of waste. I did talk about agricultural residue. So here what we are trying to do is just looking at some of the waste that are being generated, even looking at just some kind of numbers, which is not really the full volume, but is the kind of number that we can easily aggregate. And then, if you really look at the CBG potential of it, you have the agri residue, something like 150 metric tons, as against what is available. If you really look at, if you cover more crops than 10, then it could be much more than 400, 500 metric tons of agri residue that is available in the country. But, even if you take 150 tons as what is available, which can be aggregated, the biomass, bio-CNG potential is about 20 metric ton. If you also look at spent wash, press mud coming from the sugar industry, MSW, sewage water treatment, whatever the cattle dung that can easily be recovered and aggregated, if you really look at it, we are looking at something like 60 to 62 million metric tons of CBG potential, biogas potential, and as a byproduct, you also get another 300 to 350 million metric tons of fermented manure. So when you look at this number, when you say 60 million metric ton, this is 25% more than the total gas that is being consumed in the country today. And if you really look at all the biomass and other waste that is available to us, probably, straight away we will be able to meet, at least 50% of our energy needs. Now, there have been some initiatives that have been taken to convert some of these wastes into energy streams. And we all know that, in the recent past, Ministry of Petroleum, Ministry of Power has directed NTPC to start, substituting coal with, the biomass briquettes. And a lot of industries have come up to convert paddy straw into briquettes and supply it to NTPC. However, the actual procurement and large volume utilization in the NTPC boilers is yet to start. The other potential is that all these biomass can be converted into either cellulosic ethanol or CBG biogas, and there are two programs that have already been initiated by Ministry of Petroleum. We have the biomass which can be processed to recover all the sugars and ferment these sugars to get ethanol, and also the CBG program. Both the programs have already been announced by the government. And the second generation ethanol, Ministry of Petroleum has already directed oil marketing companies to set up about 11 commercial plants. The technologies are already there, but each of these technology had been demonstrated at certain scale, at demonstration level. But these are being scaled up at this point of time. So we have to really see how these technologies are going to perform and how the challenges of scaling are going to be addressed, during this phase. And as I see it, some of them are going to be commissioned quite soon. And Satat is another program where we are looking at various different types of waste streams which can be converted into CBG and fermented biomanure as the byproduct. And MNRE is playing a very significant role when it comes to supporting the CBG initiative. And also they are applying their mind in creating the biomass supply chain. Dr. Bakshi was talking about some of the support that is really required in having a robust supply chain, and these are some of the issues that are being looked into and being addressed by Ministry of New and Renewable Energy. If you really look at some of the status of the 2G ethanol plants, you see that this waste, I would say, not just second generation, but waste to energy. Three of the plants by OMCs are being set up, and and most of them are supported by Praj in terms of technology. The one from NRL, it's Chempolis technology, and Lanzatech is also setting up a plant which is going to be commissioned some early next year. This is making use of the refinery gases and going through the gas fermentation process. So we are looking at three different technologies and three different approaches for converting not only the agricultural residues but also industrial waste gases into ethanol. Now, as far as the Satat is concerned, this was a program that was launched in 2018, looking at CBG as a transport fuel besides cooking and industrial applications. Various different waste streams are going to be used as feedstock. The whole program is looking at setting up something like 5,000 commercial plants. Though I said the potential we have is to produce more than 60 million metric tons of gas. In the phase one, we're only looking at producing about 15 million metric tons of CBG through this 5,000 commercial plants, which itself is going to replace almost 75% of the total imported CNG or LNG into the country, and almost about 35% of the the gases that are being consumed within the country. And there are a lot of policy enablers and support that are being extended by government and the oil marketing companies. The current status, there is a base price that has been announced also re-looking into their central financial assistance scheme and looking at how they can extend the scheme for the Satat program. RBI has declared this as a priority industry, and many public sector banks have already come up with their financial instruments. And as of 1st October, we had almost 3,278 LOIs were received, 2,400 plus MOUs have been signed, 13 plants were fully commissioned. CBG, for the first time in the country, is being sold through 23 retail outlets. There's one plant where they are injecting the CBG into the GAIL pipeline. And also now the fermented organic manure, both liquid as well as the solid manure, has been included in the fertilizer control order. And we have to also think in terms of how do we create the markets for CO2, which is another byproduct that comes out of this CBG plant. So a lot of this work is being done. And in the entire ecosystem, we also should have enough number of vehicles which can run on CBG and also on ethanol blended fuels, and also 100% ethanol in future. So government is working very closely with SIAM and looking at all vehicles that are coming out in future. At least the 2 and 3 wheelers will only run on CBG and E100. And we are also looking at flexi engine cars to be released. So it's a kind of an highly integrated kind of an approach that is being taken at this point of time, looking at wasted resources, different technologies, programs for converting, using these technologies to convert this waste into energy, and making sure that there is a market that is being created for the uptake of all the energy that we are going to be producing. Now, when we're coming back to the technology pathways, when we are talking about waste to energy, there are different pathways which are quite well matured, like you have the fermentation, gasification, pyrolysis, etc. But when you are talking about using the waste streams for converting them into useful product through these processes, you realize that many of these technologies are at different maturity levels. Some are still in the laboratory. There are some which have been demonstrated in pilot mode, and there are some which have been commercialized. So it is very important that we do a systematic study of these kind of technologies and identify the kind of gaps that are there, and ensure that these kind of gaps are addressed through some kind of a targeted research. So when I say targeted research, what I mean is that, one is identifying the gaps and also identifying an institution which can probably address this gap. You may, a project with some kind of time deadlines and deliverables being well defined, and provide them with all the kind of necessary funds for them to achieve these kind of objectives, which will be in tune with some of the national objectives. Now, other important aspect that we have to look into is when we are talking about different types of feedstocks and different types of the conversion pathways. It is not just the intended product that comes out. There are different types of products that comes out. So what becomes very important is that how do we use all these byproduct valorization and creation of market for these value added products, I think becomes very important. And unless the byproducts are properly commercialized, the viability and sustainability of these technologies will always be a big question mark. And of course, for all these things to materialize, the policy and financial support for technologies which are evolving, there has to be assistance for demonstrating it at pilot demonstration as well as commercialization of these technologies. So it is very important, and that kind of an policy ecosystem and support structure has to be created within the country. But when we are talking about waste to energy, also in this session we are also talking about waste to chemicals. But while we have at least a program like 2G ethanol or CBG for converting many of these waste streams into energy, we don't have any program or initiative for converting the waste into biochemicals or biomaterials. This is something that we need to really look into. When we are really looking at converting many of these potential into energy or materials and things like that, I think we need to stop for a moment and ask a few questions, which I believe that these questions will be very important. I did mention some of the initiatives that we had taken in terms of finding out various different types of waste streams that we have. But I still believe that we need to still have some kind of plans or projects for systematic assessment of various types of residues and waste streams that are being generated, and also looking in terms of creating a sustainable and robust supply chain and ensure that these wastes are delivered to the industry for processing. And from the processing standpoint of view, we are talking about different types of process possibilities. So when we talk about it, we need to really think in terms of what are the kind of priorities. Do we have to look at all these kind of technologies, or do we have to start focusing on those kind of technologies which have been commercialized already, while you are continue to support the innovation part of it. And another important aspect is, many of these ways, through incineration, we are generating heat, or through various processes, we are also trying to generate electricity. It is time that we stop and also look at, when we are looking at recovering energy, the kind of pathways that we are using, whether is helping us achieve the maximum energy and value recovery. This is something that we have to really seriously look into. And there has been a lot of talk about hydrogen. There is no clarity when we are talking about hydrogen, whether we are talking about still, the energy intensive, blue hydrogen, or whether we are talking about, green hydrogen. So if you are really looking at it, whether it is hydrogen or chemicals or materials, our seriousness with regard to converting this biomass into this has to be, yet to be demonstrated. The other important aspect is, when you have this kind of waste streams, when you are not utilizing it, or the way it is being utilized, they are also creating a whole lot of health and environmental problems. So when we are talking about these kind of conversion pathways, have we really looked at the kind of benefits that accrues to the society in terms of health, as well as the carbon mitigation benefits? I don't think we have done any kind of systematic studies or initiative in trying to capture all this. The other important aspect is also, when we are talking about this wasted resource, we are talking about different conversion pathways and different products. So there is going to be some kind of a competition, because these resources are concentrated in specific places. And as Mr. Bakshi was trying, so for example, agricultural residues is not going to be available all through the year. So then, we had to be very careful when we are talking about making use of these resources. Are we really looking at multiple technologies coming, and each of these initiative stepping on each other's stone? So how do we really prioritize what sector should be given the importance? This is something that we have to look into. And in a changing scenario, we see that in many parts of the country, the cropping patterns are being changed. You go and set up a plant based on paddy straw, and if they stop growing paddy in that area, what will happen? So there has to be continuity and sustainability aspects that have to be looked into quite seriously. The other important aspect is funding. Through our taxation system that we have been collecting a lot of taxes as green fund, but these green funds are not necessarily being used for our promotion of green projects. I think this is something that we had to seriously look into, and we had to probably create some kind of a institutional mechanism, not only for promotion of bioenergy, but also for tapping into these kind of green funds that we have in the country, and also green fund that is available from outside the country, and really see how that could help meet some of the financial needs of the waste to energy kind of industry. I think that would be quite important as we move forward. So these are some of the aspects that I just wanted to bring it to the table for discussion. I would be glad to answer any questions that we may have. So thank you very much for the opportunity once again, and I would request probably the next speaker to start their presentation.
Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you.
It was
Thank you so
a
much,
nice
sir.
presentation. Before just moving forward, I would like to just convey a small message. This session we have planned till 4 o'clock. We have 5 speakers, so I would request all the speakers to manage the time a little. Thank you so much.
Mr. Jain, if you would like to take the floor. Thank you so much, Mr. Ramakrishna.
Thank you.
Mr. Jain, would you like to start your presentation, or shall I invite Dr. Tuli to do the honors?
Sangeet, we can't hear you if you are presenting already.
Thank you so much, sir. Dr. Tuli, I would request you to be the next presenter after Mr. Jain is done. Thank you, sir. Please go ahead.
Can you see my presentation? Not yet.
Not yet, sir.
Well, I have some issues in sharing. I really don't know. Is it there?
Yes, sir. Now we can see it. I'll request you to.
Okay.
Yeah, perfect. Please
Right.
go ahead. Thank you.
I appreciate this opportunity to talk in this conference. Right from morning, I've been listening to different lectures, and it's been a real education uh, in some sense, especially the talks on gasification and the one by Mr. Bakshi. I hope someday this comes true, and we can actually what is it? Okay, so let's start on a positive note. That how is India doing in renewable energy? So I was looking into credible literature by say REN and IEA, and to see that what we have done in last few years, and it was quite heartening that our uh, growth in some of the renewable energy, I'm not saying only in bioenergy, has been quite good. So, next 2 or 3 slides I have taken from RAN status report of 2020 and IEA reports, and which is quite good. So, this here it shows annual investment net capacity addition in 2019. So, if you see in investment, India is number 4 country wise. In solar PV, India is number 3. Water heating capacity, number 3. Ethanol production, we have come up in number 4, which is very heartening to know. And so, which are the leaders? That is the total capacity or generation at the end of 19. Again, in bio power capacity, India started appearing. So, and obviously in solar PV and wind power, we are already there into this. But the opportunities are huge. The same report says in transport sector globally, I'm talking about. So 32% of the total energy which is produced is consumed by transport sector, and 96.7% is non-renewable fossil, mostly petroleum. Only 3.3 is renewable, out of which 3% is biofuel. So there is a huge opportunity which exists in India. Now, if you see why we are getting into bioenergy, very popular slide which everyone shows that how much net imports we are doing from 57% in 1997. We are going to get into 92%. So this is one of the area. So these factors compel us to worry about it. That cheap oil is, and we have seen recently, cheap oil is not there, and energy security. The last thing has become most important. That is the emissions criteria, and how do we fulfill into this? Now, I am certain about one fact that since we are doing waste into energy, then the classical economics should be tinkered a little bit because we this is a waste disposal problem. So there are some disturbing facts we have. In 2 years back, 22 Indian cities were in the 50 most polluted cities. Population wise, there is increase, and as I said, energy consumption increasing, import is increasing, but at the same time, about 20 million tons of crop residue is burnt in onto the field. So these there are several technologies, for example, gasification, cellulosic ethanol, pyrolysis, which has come up, even anaerobic digestion, but the large scale application is still elusive. So we need to put some value on what we are doing because it's a waste disposal. For example, I just collected some figures that if we burn the residue, then there is a loss of nutrients. So 1 ton of rice straw account for loss of, if you burn 5.5 kg of nitrogen, there is a huge amount of phosphorus, potassium, and sulfur. And then upon burning, it gives carbon dioxide 70% and carbon monoxide 7%. And we have seen what is pollution. And soil organisms which are beneficial, they get destroyed. So this this is a factor which should tell us that how we should develop technologies platform for agricultural residue. Now we all know there are two major platform options. Gasification is being discussed in this forum very intimately and very detailed analysis into this. So there is a thermochemical platform and there is a sugar platform. So I will talk of the sugar platform, and Dr. Ramakrishna has raised one thing that can we consider biochemicals into this, and we have been doing it very seriously study into this that what are the possibilities of biochemicals which we can produce along with 2G ethanol, and what other countries and what other laboratories are doing into this. So, if you look into agricultural biomass, it's a very popular slide. You can get gasification syngas and then alcohols and diesel. Bio-oil you can get by fast pyrolysis, and fermentable sugars by bioroot, which can give you alcohols, biomethane by anaerobic digestion, and biohydrogen as well. Now, there is there's a lot of discussion and there is a lot of competition. People saying that their technology platform is the best, uh, gasification is the best, thermochemical is better than biochemical. But what we say is no single feedstock or technology platform can achieve the target. Targets are huge. So we have to look at all possibilities, that is second generation biofuels, bio-oils, gasification, and waste gas, which my friend Mr. Jain will be talking about, and municipal waste and other options which we need to do. So all these possibilities have to be seen, provided they meet some sort of economic and as well as environmental thing. There's a huge amount of work, fortunately, which is going on this country. I have listed some, but I may be missing out few. For example, in gasification, ISC Bangalore has done for biomass gasification huge work, and they are setting up a large pilot plant with IOC. Pyrolysis is TERI, biohydrogen, ICT, TERI, and Kharagpur. Cellulosic ethanol Praj, they'll be talking about it. Gas fermentation, we know, Lanzatech, and now with Lanzatech IOC. Anaerobic digestion has been done on a very large scale, and enzyme development, algal technology. But there is a word of caution here, which I want to emphasize, and I have felt it. This. There are several imported technologies are being offered, may it be on coal gasification or other gasifications. A caution is needed that technology must be implemented at other states. We have seen several times that technologies are offered to India by Western countries, and they haven't themselves adopted these on large scale. So there has to be a caution when we select a particular technology. So I'll briefly talk about 2G ethanol and straightway go to biochemicals, which Dr. Ramakrishna also talked about it. Now, uh, this one slide I really like. Uh, so this is the map of world, not according to the area, but according to oil. See how big is Saudi Arabia, which comes into this. But if you, the same map, if you see in the farming, those all those countries have disappeared, and India, China, and United States, which has a huge farming, they comes into this. So can we have a some sense which comes out of it? Now, this slide is for people who wouldn't know uh, what is cellulosic ethanol. So I have compared. Presently, in ethanol we are making in India, that is molasses, and it goes undergoes fermentation. It gives you ethanol, about 140 liters per ton of this. But in US and other countries where they have corn, so it needs another step called hydrolysis. Once hydrolysis is done, then glucose sugar is obtained, and fermentation we know. So ethanol is about 210 liters per ton. And the third one, which we are talking about, cellulosic ethanol, is start with biomass, and there is one additional step C, which is called pre-treatment. After pre-treatment, then we do hydrolysis, sugars, both C6 and C5 sugars, and ethanol is then obtained into this. Now, if all these three steps are known, then what is the issue in cellulosic ethanol? The major issue is all these steps of pretreatment, hydrolysis, and fermentations cannot be optimized singularly. and they have to be optimized together. And there is what the difficulty is. And it can be used to most of the biomass, which have typically about 40 to 60% cellulose and hemicellulose, and some lignin is there. Now, which biomass to do? So this slide sums up this. This is economical, and on this side is abundance. Sugarcane is the most economical, but abundance wise it is low. Cornstarch is economical as well as abundant also, starch. But the things which we are talking about, that is stovers, residues, wood chips, etc., they are hugely abundant, but economically they are at a lower pace. So we have to look into this. We have talked about it, so I won't go into this. There are issues in biomass handling, which Mr. Bakshi was also talking about. Collection, because it is all over the field. Low density, people have talked about in this seminar. And availability throughout the year, transportation, and variation. And secondly, it the technology can be optimized to a single biomass like this. So, what is the global status? There are large number of plants which have been made 20 million gallons per year, 30 million gallons per year. So, most of these plants, I have looked into this, and I have data with it. They had the teething problems before stabilization, and so much so that some of them closed because of the financial reason, not maybe the technology reason. So the technology is still evolving, and there are some operational and maintenance issues and corrections which are being done. And now some of the plants are on stream most of the time. Government initiative, I won't say, because Dr. Ramakrishna has already said that there's a viability gap funding, there's a differential pricing, and the other schemes which government has. There's a huge government this. So this is the one which is essence. Can we have some biochemicals from biogas? And this I have done a thorough literature search and seen what other companies have started doing. So generally, if we look into this, lignocellulose, pre-treatment, hydrolysis, and we get sugars. We get both C6, that is glucose, and C5 xylose sugars. So there is a separation step, and from glucose, all these things are possible, and these are being done presently, but not from biomass glucose, but from the starch glucose. So I will give few uh, major this thing. For example, how can we do value addition to xylose? And people who are in this area, they know it is very difficult to ferment xylose into ethanol, because no natural yeast will do this job. So if we have from biomass, if we get xylose, we can dehydrate to get furfural. It's a simple step, and it's been done on a very large scale. Tetrahydrofuran and other chemical. For example, furfural only 300,000 tons per year, and is used in plastic, pharmaceuticals, and drives a good value out of it. So we can think a part of it. Another thing which several large companies like Shell also have started doing is FDCA. So FDCA is furan dicarboxylic acid, which is just like other dicarboxylic acid like adipic acid, terthalic acid. So it is used for making a green terthalate, green polymer into this. There's a huge demand for this, and FDCA can be produced from hydroxymethyl furfural, and HMF is easily produced from glucose. So this is another potential where large companies have started working into this. No, there are other platform chemical presently being done on glucose and also on some petro feeds. For example, succinic acid has been now started making on commercial scale by E. coli fermentation of glucose, and market value of succinic acid is about 1.5 billion 2 years ago. Again, there is limonenic acid which can be made, and it can be made by acid catalyzed hydrolysis of C6 glucose sugar. So, which we can do. Another thing which three companies globally have started doing from biomass related glucose is catalytic hydrogenation of glucose to vitamin C ascorbic acid into this, and sorbitol. Now, sorbitol is a sugar substitute we all know, and there is a huge demand which is there. For example, the sorbitol market I was looking into in India is 165 kilotons last year. So, this can also be thought of. Xylitol is a sugar which is 20% more sweeter than normal sugar and 40% less calories. So this is given to diabetes, and there is a huge global demand. More than $1 billion demand is in this. So it can be made from xylose, which comes from biomass, and as I showed you, it is after hydrolysis. And once you hydrogenate, you get xylitol into this. So this is another area where we can do. No, I'm not saying that whole of the sugars we should convert, because what we can do is a part of the sugars can go into these biochemicals, and rest the major part can go into ethanol. So this will cross subsidize because these are very high value materials. So the cellulosic ethanol can become competitive. So I conclude here that during, as I showed you in this slides of IEA and REN, we have done quite well. Now the main thing which has come up is there is a clear policy directions, and if you have seen new biofuel policy, it is exceedingly good and it started showing results. Ethanol blending has increased many folds during last 4 5 years. 2G ethanol is expensive to produce presently, like anywhere else. We are not single, and there are some technical issues which still need R&D. Part production of biochemicals, which I have showed few biochemicals, is a one way of doing value addition. I'm not saying all of them can be produced economically, but one has to do a thorough study into this. And along with the biochemical route, gasification, pyrolysis, gas fermentation on commercial scale, next few years we'll see. So I see a good this thing there. But one thing is definite, that may it be anaerobic digestion from, say, food waste or from vegetable waste, until unless there is a value which is given to the operator as a tipping fees, none of these will become commercial for making just biogas for power or biogas for heat. So since these technologies are disposing waste, so some sort of positive credit and delta has to be given. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Julie, for that wonderful presentation. Can I please request the next presenter to take the center stage and start sharing your screen? Mr. Jain, are you presenting? Mr. Jain, I can see your screen now. A quick reminder to everyone who is in the audience, all the questions that you can put in your chat box, we will take them as many as we can, depending on the time that we have by the end of the session. So if you have any questions, please make sure that you mention the speaker who you would like to ask the question to and write your question in the chat box. And by the end of the session, in the Q&A, we try to take as many questions as we can. Mr. Jain, I can't hear you as of now.
He's muted. He's muted. He has to unmute himself.
Right, let me help you out with that. So, uh, Mr. Jain, can you try to unmute yourself? And also, right now, sir, you're sharing your screen. That's going to share everything on the screen. I would rather request you to share just your presentation. That will have a much better visual acuity while you're presenting. संगीत जी, आप बोलने की कोशिश कर सकते हैं? Can you let me hear if your audio is working fine? I can see the video, Mr. Jain. Still can't hear you, sir. Let me ask my team from the technical to help you out. If this doesn't work, I would request another speaker, presenter to come and share their presentation. If it works out, it's great. We can continue with Mr. Jain.
Sangeet, it's working? No. So
Mr.
should
Jain, we can't hear
when
you.
should I share my presentation?
Please, sir, go ahead. Mr. Jain, I will ask somebody from the technical team to help you out, fix the issue, and then you can present later. Just give me 5 minutes. Yes, Mr. Joshi, you can present in the meantime.
Yeah, sure. Now, am I audible?
Yes, sir, you're audible and you're visible.
Yeah. Now my screen is get shared.
Not as of now, sir. I'll let you know as soon as I see the screen being shared. I can see your camera at
Yes.
the moment. Now
Okay.
it's working, sir.
Yes, it's there.
Please go ahead.
Yes. Okay.
Yes.
So good afternoon, all. And as Mr. Vasudev is stuck in some travel and due to low bandwidth is not able to catch this presentation. So behalf of Praj, I'm Dr. Tushar Patil presenting this technological pathways to leverage the carbon-based inputs to advanced biofuels. And I'd like to thanks first Dr. Tuli Saab that they open up the biochemical platform, and definitely Praj is working for this platform to get it into our advanced biorefineries concept. And I would also like to thank YB sir that for all national biofuel policies along with mission targets that how Praj has built and commissioned the plants, demo plants, and come up with the commercial plants for utilizing this all carbon potential for the production of biofuels. So as a Praj industry, I'll just take a one more slide. At a glance, if you see that more than now 1,000 plus references worldwide we achieved, and more than 100 countries we are operating. And of course, as a Biofuel Digest has ranked us as a best place to work, of course, as a second rank for this different aspect. So 1, 2, 3 with the 1,000 numbers is the proud moment. And our executive chairman, Dr. Pramod Chaudhary, he has received a prestigious award of George Washington Carver in 2020 for agri-biotechnology to develop this entire biomass agri-based biofuels for the nation. So coming to main agenda as a growth challenges, if you see into overall perspective of the uh, nation or globe with this COP26, we found that as a challenge, we can see that rural job opportunities, health issues due to this crop burning or pollution, then ecosystem, what need to be developed, it should be under development. Then for energy, as Dr. Tuli and YB sir rightly explained regarding the reliance on heavy imports, then energy mix and energy security. Then coming to the environment, yes, GHG is the major target, and pollution due to rapid industrialization that need to be controlled. Of course, along with this, all the factors that how we can use this potential carbon to uh, maximum utilization, and we can say recirculate this carbon effectively. So we should not generate more, as a everyone knows that plant physiology is there, they are capturing carbon, but at the end we should not add on to that carbon cycle. And coming to the uh, economy, of course, huge forex need to be reduced very strongly. So these are basically the different pillars for India to work it on very closely with addressing the challenges and providing the best solutions for with the technology. And as a Praj, from last 35 plus years, we are in this business and technology development company with engineering capabilities. We are building different projects for globe as well as for the nation. So for these challenges, what is the real thought process as a Praj industry is looking it as a biomobility. So biomobility is nothing but decarbonizing the transportation. What we focus. So basically air, road, and marine. So jet, as you know, bioethanol, 1G, we are more than say 75% of market share as a company for technology and engineering prospect. We came out with the cellulosic ethanol, that is 2G ethanol, then biodiesel, then biomethanol. Some experiments are going on biohydrogen, then sustainable aviation fuel. Recently, we are having tie-up. Then marine biofuels, which is advancement, or we can say that additional model to biorefineries. Then, of course, compressed biogas. So we need to focus that from each layer of the environment, that entire carbon need to be captured and use it properly for production to maintain the GHG level minimum. So coming to the technologies, first generation ethanol, as you know, that produced from sugar and starchy feedstock, as Dr. Tuli has explained. That another technology that in advancement, Infinity. In Infinity, there is a second generation ethanol, which is produced from forest as well as agricultural crop residue. Then biomethanol, similar raw material we can use. And for forest residue in second generation, we called it now as a Cellunity, a new term we coined for this forest wood or forest residues. Then compressed biogas from renewable feedstocks such as biomass, press mud, your energy grasses, and of course MSW. Then eco diesel, biodiesel from the UCO. Coming to the sustainable aviation fuel, bio-based jet fuel produced using sugar, starch, and biomass is the platform what we are working. And now recently we have tested our first sample, which is produced from sugar base and approved by the Indian Air Force. Coming to the marine, which is lignin based feedstock. So whatever the lignin is left over in the process, that we can convert it further to marine biofuels. So we facilitated energy self-reliance, economy, and growth for the farming community indirectly, because all these technologies are based on agriculture, of course, along with the forest. So if we focus on these technologies as a GHG calculations for this different, what we can say, biofuel productions, then SA from corn, if you see that 10 to 15% is the GHG reduction, but highest if you go down, that cellulosic ethanol, 80 to 100%, we can use that and convert it carbon into better fuel. Of course, CBG or renewable gas is on the top of the list. So how we are doing with this GHG reduction and technology integration with the higher efficiency of energy, as well as developing certain model with biofuel circles on the sustainable supply chain, and of course by coming down with the water footprint, energy consumption, and carbon footprint. So these some technologies as a Praj we have developed. For example, green gas, biomass to bio CNG, where 120 to 130 meter cube of biogas can be generated from a 1 ton of press mud, and roughly say 400 meter cube of biogas can be generated from 1 ton of rice straw. Similarly, with the 2G ethanol, sir has mentioned certain numbers. I'd just like to highlight that from 1 ton of grain of paddy, we are able to produce, say, roughly 400 liters of ethanol, and from 1 ton of biomass paddy straw, we are able to produce, say, 250 to 260 liter. Of course, it depends on the C5 and C6 sugars and lignin bond, which is making a process tougher for the production of cellulosic ethanol. So as a 2G success story, if you see that in 2019 to 16, we started our R&D, perform different models, observing different plants across the globe, taking the inputs from DBT also, and started working on modifying the research into lab to pilot. So 1 ton of bone dry ton pilot plant started operating in 2009. 2016 to 18 was the period where we thought that 12 metric ton uh, demonstration plant, which is based near to Pune, need to be established, and scale up should be done to optimize whatever the research has been done to make it on commercial scale. 1920 process optimization and value engineering has been completed, and 2022 now we are uh, executing these three major projects with Indian Oil, HPCL, BPCL. And of course, there are certain references. We are now generating benchmark in the different countries. So using agricultural crop residue is the major theme for India, and of course forest residues and all for the European countries. So as these are the three major plants, as YB sir has also mentioned, that April 2022, we are in the mechanical completion stage of Asia's first rice straw based 100 kiloliters per day capacity second generation ethanol, where already the biomass supply chain is under certain stage. Then mechanical completion, roughly we can say now we are in the last phase of mechanical completion. So we are expecting that this plant is going to be the first plant of India also to commercially produce advanced biofuel. Then of course Bargad plant, that is based again on rice straw with Bharat Petroleum. Then rice straw plant based in Batinda, that is in Punjab, with the Hindustan Petroleum. So these are some snapshots of IOCL Panipat plant site photographs of last month, where we have erected distillation and other columns. Now pre-treatment chamber has also been uh, set up last week itself, and that was the major reactor or heart of the process, which has get mechanical completion within next 10 to 15 days. So boiler and all critical equipments has been processed, and we within this execution we also kept our major focus to see that how the capital investment will come down in further projects, and also strongly work on the footprints, water, power, and carbon. Coming to the second technology as a CBG, compressed biogas, as you all aware that 15 million metric tons has to be replaced with the Indian production. And as a technology provider, we had a tie-up with one of the uh, digester company which has built more than 110 plants, and based on agricultural crop residue, press mud, sugarcane waste, then empty farm fruit bunches, then grasses, we have now demonstrated in our pilot plant, which is based in our R&D, with a very special unique value proposition and some patented process like BM sol, then your press mud preservation cultures, then certification of this all fermented organic manure with the National Organic Certifying Agency. And today we supposed to see that the numbers are above the global benchmark levels for the production of this biogas, and of course the cleaning systems based on that the final yield is coming out. But as a integration and energy value in this entire process with the longer sustainability for the projects, that what we are looking at, that once the digester has been made, then there should not be further mechanical problem or rotary equipment problem. So entire digester we make it free from any rotary equipment. It is just an rotation of the slurry with the some special nozzles with the pressure of biogas itself. So they are making the waves, and finally maximum organic things will be get in connect with the bacterial microflora. So presently we are doing the project with the Hindustan Petroleum, that is in Badayu, of 100 tons per day rice straw to CBG, and another project Indian Potash, that is under commissioning now, that is based on press mud. It is 200 ton press mud producing roughly say 10 tons of compressed biogas. So for sustainable aviation fuel, as I told earlier, that we had having the tie-up with GVO, and they developed the technology based on the corn. Here in India, we use the sugar platform to develop the sustainable aviation fuel. And of course, this is the platform where we can provide the value addition to sugar industries also, as well as coming to the biomass. We are in the platform now to generating the sugars, and that sugars can further process further directly to IBA and IBA to jet fuel. As a sugar platform, we focus on isobutanol thing, and once IBA is produced, then jet fuel is the next step to uh, produce with the hydrocarbon process. So in hydrocarbon process, we followed that dehydration, oligomerization, hydrogenation, and then distillation. So this is alcohol to jet pathway, and this is approved by ASTM and ASAF, tested and used by various airlines in and US Air Force. This is 2030 demand if you see, and right now if you start building such uh, better projects with the value addition, as to be rightly said, that biorefinery concept and larger value addition need to be bring for sustainability of entire biomobility. Coming to next chapter of RCM, that is renewable chemicals of bio. There is a new frontier in bioeconomy, and leveraging similar feedstock of biomobility and keeping that platform as a sugar for developing this renewable chemicals. We called it as a bioprism technologies, and we are now very sure that some of the technologies as presented, xylose, then xylitol, then your PLA, these are now ready to offer. As in 2G ethanol, we are now in the process lignin to lignosulfonate or bitumen or marine fuel. Similarly, we are in the process to see that how these sugars, majorly C5 sugars, can be used for different biochemicals. And somewhere we are in now, say, pilot stage to complete the process, and within next 3 to 4 months we are ready with the commercial offerings. So if you see that renewable chemicals platform, food ingredients, bioindustrial products, and agri supplements, these are the three targeted areas. And with the bioindustrial products, we are very especially working with the 2G products and bioplastics. Coming to the types and focus, if you see right hand corner upper side, that bioplastic, PLA, PHA, starch and cellulose blends. These are the major green zones where we are thinking that it should be geared to bioped, biopolybutadiene, then spandex, that is purpurol. And this is going to lead further for the new era of this entire carbon saving, carbon footprints with the bio polymerized bioplastic or biochemical platform to be create in India. And I request all the policy makers that it should get really a good support for Indian scenario. With this, if we found that sustainability through as national biofuel policy explain that how India is going to make it more sustainable, that GHG emission saving is more than say 26 million metric ton, and more than say 1 lakh 3 lakh 27 jobs will be created, and more than 2 crore farmers are going to be benefit with by using this agricultural crop residue, which is really a surplus potential for India to make a, means carbon is available in India and that need to be used thoroughly, and with all index of say profitability or sustainability, and of course with the social development aspect, this technology has really a great boom for the nation. This is our demonstration plant, 12 tons per day, which is based near to Pune. And recently we have in the sixth phase of operating with the different biomass. As we tested in the demonstration, different raw materials from paddy straw to bagasse to your wheat straw, then your corn cobs, then soya husk, then grasses, and we are having our large R&D, that is Praj Matrix, which is the backbone for developing these all technologies. And the major advantage is with Praj is that we are now with the more than say 500 plus samples across globes tested, and we are having footprints, and all process optimizations has been done. So best operating cost can be offered now with the Praj's development. This we build not only for the say, business sake, but as our honorable chairman's vision that sustainability through biomobility and socio-economic development is the challenge that we face, that it should be created and developed. With this, I would like to thank you all and my senior colleagues there to provide the opportunity to Praj to present their development. Thank you.
Am I audible now?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, Sangeet, audible.
So I'll share my screen and my presentation is visible.
Yes, Agit, visible.
Okay. Sorry for the glitches. Hopefully, it works out now. Thank you for the opportunity and being the last one now. I think lot of things have already been covered. I'll focus more on what we are doing at Lanzatech in recycling carbon. So carbon essentially we use it in our everyday use. We have whether it's the fuels or whether it's the materials that we use. It's there in almost everything that we use, and so it's a very precious material. The thing is, energy can be carbon free, but chemicals, fuels, they will continue to need carbon. And also, aviation, this will require carbon for a long time to come. Now, the important thing is where does this carbon come from? And that will uh, define what is our climate future. So some of the sources that of for carbon is the biomass, the municipal solid waste, uh, gases from the industries. So these can be good source of carbon. Lanzatech works with the gas fermentation platform and has been using it to recycle carbon. So the basic process, it is when we started company way back in 2005, it was using the gases from the steel mills furnaces, which were rich in carbon monoxide, and we use that with some amount of cleanup and with a proprietary reactor design and a proprietary biocatalyst to convert those gases into ethanol. And this ethanol can go into various applications as fuels, and it can also be converted into a sustainable aviation fuel. It can be blended into gasoline. It can also be used to make many different chemicals. We have commercially running units for polyethylene and monoethylene glycol. And so if you have a ethanol which is from recycled carbon, so there's a possibility to make chemicals also renewable. One of the things that also comes from our process is the dead microbe, which has a protein content of more than 85% and can go into animal feed. Now, when we started, it was using with the industrial of gases, and then we also looked at what could be the other source of feedstocks, and we work with various gas compositions, and one of the gases is the syngas, which can be derived from either agricultural waste or municipal solid waste by gasification of these materials, a bit of cleanup, and then the same gas can be used in the bioreactor where CO and hydrogen will get converted into ethanol. So this provides an alternate for disposal of materials which have been used. A way to recycle the carbon. The other thing which can also be done with power prices going down, and there's an emphasis on use of green hydrogen. CO2 can be converted by electrolysis to CO, and green hydrogen uh, again from electrolysis of water. So CO and hydrogen can be the feedstocks which can be converted into various products using gas fermentation. So we can basically close the loop and keep recycling the carbons that we need for our use. A picture of the unit which started in China, the first commercial unit in 2018, and has been running very very good in China. And what it has done is it has allowed us to partner with Shogang for multiple projects. And this year, the second unit also started operating. So from 2005, when the work started in the labs, to pilot in 2008, demonstration scale in 2012, commercial unit, the first one in 2018, and we have the second unit also running now, and multiple units at various stage of design and construction. Next year, you should also see the project that is being built at IOC Panipat refinery site. The interesting thing about this project is it not only consumes CO and hydrogen because of the high ratio of hydrogen and CO. It's also able to consume CO2 in the process, and almost 50% of the carbon in ethanol would come directly from CO2. So, what are we doing is we have a gasification process which can convert, which can uh, create syngas, which can be fermented to chemicals and then converted to plastics. The plastic waste can be collected, and two pathways we now have. One is mechanical recycling, and the other is the gasification, which closes the loop of carbon recycling. The interesting thing about these processes also that the biological processes, they are able to take very different kind of inputs and changing compositions of the gases, and they are pretty stable processes when we compare them to thermal catalytic processes. So this is data from one of the pilots which was run on syngas from the municipal solid waste in Japan, and you can see very widely fluctuating gas composition, and the gas fermentation output in terms of ethanol is pretty stable. So today we are struggling with crop residues in India, but that can be an opportunity to recycle the carbon using gasification and gas fermentation. We are working with one of the partners with us, Ankur Scientific, based in Baroda. They have been in the business of gasifiers, and we have worked a lot at their site and operated those gasifiers with different feedstocks using our mobile lab to do fermentation of those gases and produce ethanol at a lab scale. So a lot of data that has been generated, and we see a lot of feedstocks which can now be converted into useful products. So for India, these are feedstocks that can really provide a lot of ethanol, provided we have a supportive policy framework along with that for advanced biofuels. And we have heard that from Mr. Ramkrishna and Dr. Tuli. Sharing on how this works with the microbes, what we also see is if there is green hydrogen, how beneficial it can be in carbon capture. So as we start to increase hydrogen in the gas, so there is a reduction on the CO2 output from the process, and essentially when you have 2:1 ratio of CO and hydrogen, it's 100% conversion of carbon into ethanol. And cases like Panipat refinery, where you have a high hydrogen to CO ratio, is the equation at 4 number, which is using both CO and CO2 to make ethanol. And We have also been working to see how, with the green hydrogen being available, how we can work to make ethanol, and we are working on multiple projects now where hydrogen and CO2 would be the feedstock and can be converted to ethanol. So two pathways that we plan for using. One is CO2 being converted to CO electrolytically, and then also CO2 and green hydrogen, and then using the gas fermentation to make multiple products. So one of the things which can also be used along with the 1G ethanol process, where a lot of CO2 is generated in the fermentation process. So if there is the chance of electrolysis, and if we can get either only CO or CO and hydrogen, so that can be converted to make more ethanol. Where are we currently with the technology deployment? Multiple locations, two plants in China are already commercial, and third is in the construction phase. We also have ArcelorMittal Belgium unit, which is in the construction phase, and Indian Oil Panipat Refinery, again, which is in the construction stage, and expected to start next year. Sekisui, which ran a pilot for many years, is now building a larger unit and expected to start be mechanically completed, or it would be started in the next year. And then we also have been working in Europe with companies for plastic waste. We are also working with CO2, where CO2 and hydrogen would be converted to ethanol, and then that ethanol would be used to make aviation fuel. So we believe that power can be carbon free, but for aviation fuel, we need carbon for a long time. And that's one area that LanzaTech has been focused, and also created a new company, LanzaJet, which is into making sustainable aviation fuel. The process was developed along with PNNL, where what we do here is converting ethanol to ethylene, and then oligomerization and hydrogenation, followed by fractionation to create jet fuel and also diesel. So we have done that, and commercial flights have tested the fuel produced, and we are now in the process of building larger units to create the sustainable fuel for the aviation industry. So this was 2014 to 2017, where we have been working to create ethanol, and then we have developed the processes to make sustainable aviation fuel. A lot of work was done to get this ASTM certified alcohol to jet fuel process, and then followed by commercial testing. And so if depending on the feedstock for making ethanol, if it's from the gases from the steel mill, so the carbon intensity of that aviation fuel is going to be very low. We have partners who are putting in money and also agreed to offtake the fuel, and so companies like Suncor, British Airways, Mitsui, Shell, ANA, and US Department of Energy. We're working with a lot of people together to make it happen. So there are multiple commercial units planned between 2022 to 2025. We expect the first one to be mechanically completed next year at our site in Georgia. So again, this also provides a recycling route. CO2 taken from direct capture, and hydrogen from renewable sources, and it can be used to convert into ethanol and then to sustainable aviation fuels. This is just a brief of the process. So CO2, what could be the sources that can come into this process, and green hydrogen through electrolyzers, and then converting ethanol into sustainable aviation fuel. So one of the projects that we are doing in US, it's the project Lotus with Department of Energy giving grants for this, and so we have their gases from the landfill, and using partial oxidation and renewable hydrogen, we will make ethanol and then convert that into aviation fuel. Another project in US where we will be using renewable power for green hydrogen, and also waste CO2 and convert that into ethanol and then to aviation fuel. Another project in Europe, again using the concept of using CO2 and then renewable hydrogen or green hydrogen for the creating sustainable aviation fuel. So the possibilities are immense, and a lot of products that can be made using the carbon which is recycled. We have already demonstrated along with our partners. L'Oreal created a bottle. A bottle created for the shampoos. This was done by Total for L'Oreal. Uh, Ethanol made in the China plant's commercial units. It was brought to India and converted into ethylene oxide and MEG, and then from ethylene oxide to ethoxylates, surfactants, which are being used in detergents. The MEG has been converted both into PET and fabric by and Lululemon is going to make apparels using that fabric. Some of the companies in Europe, they are also using that ethanol in some of their formulations, and they're trying to make the products more sustainable, both on the packaging and the product part. So one of the things that Lenzatech has also developed is that the ability to make not just ethanol, but many more products in the same reactors using the power of synthetic biology. We have been able to create biocatalysts which can work to make different chemicals. We have done piloting for IPA and acetone, and we are in the process of taking it to the next stage. So it's what we would like to say is a time to think about carbon, how it is impacting us, and how we can recycle and remove the carbon from the environment. And there are technologies which can, by using clean power, using the power of biology, and we can create the products that we need. So that's a brief presentation from us, and I'll be happy to take any questions or the presentation.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Jain, for that wonderful presentation. So we'll be doing questions and answers in a while. Before we get to that, I would like to invite Mr. Harshit Agrawal. We've just added Mr. Agrawal to the list, and he'll be presenting now. So, Mr. Agrawal, I'll hand over the screen to you.
Good evening. Are you able to see me?
Yes, and
Okay.
can hear you as well.
Okay. Very good. Just one second. I'll just share my window. So let me know once you are able to see me. See my screen.
Yes, Harshit, we can see the screen. Please go ahead.
Okay. Yes. So good evening, everyone. I would like to thank everyone for taking time out and listening to me. Eminent speaker before me have already shared the need, challenges, and future opportunities in the area of valorization of waste, whether it's in liquid form or whether it's in solid form. As elaborated earlier as well, it is a field which is changing quite rapidly, quite fast. Who would have thought, I mean, 5 years back, that we would be talking about renewable fuels and renewable pathways with such an interest, and we'll see such a drastic shift in the approach towards energy transition. I mean, not just in India, on a global level. So, although existing challenges remains, which has been aptly touched upon by all the speakers, which are biomass aggregation, UCO aggregation, economics, as well as technology, still we see there is a lot of potential. And through this presentation, I'll try to show what is happening in the fuel industry, where it is moving, and what would be the challenges and opportunities in this area. However, before we do that, I'll just quickly show you what Exens does, because I'm here representing Exens. I hope you are able to see the next slide. Can anyone confirm? Hello.
Harshit, not able to see next slide.
Okay. Is it visible now?
Yeah.
Okay. So, I mean, I'll just quickly take you through what Exens does. So, Exens is a French company, primarily active in 5 areas, as you see on the right side of the slide. Uh, Oil and gas and petrochemicals has been the core business for Exens. However, through acquisitions and collaborations in last 4 or 5 years, we have developed our solutions for gases, gas processing, renewables, which we will talk today, and water treatment solutions. Now, Exens is a subsidiary of IFP, which is also known as French Institute of Petroleum in France, which is one of the most prominent R&D institution in biofuels, fuels, petrochemicals, and carbon capture. In India as well, we have been an established player and have been licensing units in oil refining and petrochemicals. Globally, we have licensed over 3,000 units in oil and gas and petrochemicals, including renewables and gases, out of which 500 were executed on modular basis. Now, quickly moving on to the main subject, which is the topic of presentation, what is the need of waste valorization. So, as I mentioned in the beginning, that we are seeing a drastic shift in this field and in the area of fuel and energy domain, which is primarily pushed by legislations, specifically in the Western countries, uh, which is driven by to need to decarbonize the future energy systems. This transition will going to take place, and as I said in the earlier presentation as well, no one solution will able to fill this void. I mean, quite in next 2 or 3 years, but we would need a basket of solution to achieve these CO2 emission target and to meet these energy requirements. And this is why you see on the right side of the slide, where I have shown that how the requirement of fuel, its nature will change over the years in next 25 to 30 years. So as you can easily see, as we go along with the time, you can see methanol, ethanol, hydrogen, and green fuels are bound to play more role in order to reduce these CO2 emission and to meet these energy requirements. Again, this will not be an easy task because economics will continue to play important role, because in all cases economics always beat the technology, so that will going to play a crucial role going forward. However, other challenges would remain, which would be feedstock availability, its aggregation, if we talk about biomass, even UCO, as well as I think another other challenge is the adaptability into the existing infrastructure. Because let's say the challenges we are facing with hydrogen, because the infrastructure is not there and the cost of green hydrogen is very high. So all these things will take time to optimize. Same is goes with the EV. And during this transition phase, today we'll look at the pathways or the processes which we can offer to achieve these future energy requirements. At the same time, during this transition period, these routes will allow economical solution, while the other solutions such as green hydrogen and these EVs will be ready, I mean, let's say after 10 years or 20 years. So this is a quick snapshot of Exen's bio portfolio. There are some processes which are already commercialized, and there are some or few which are under a pre-commercial commercial stage. So in next 10 minutes or so, I'll talk about each of the pathways. Starting from the top, you can see a process known as vegan. This is a process which converts your lipid feedstock, renewable oil and fats, into fuels, green fuels, such as green diesel, green aviation fuel, SAF, which was talked about a lot in previous presentations, as well as renewable naphtha, which can be used for as a petrochemical feedstock to produce petrochemicals. Now, the other process is the Gesell process. It is based on the FT route, which is very well known and quite old process. So in this Gesell process, it converts syngas into waxes, and then these waxes are then upgraded into fuels, which I mentioned previously, like naphtha, diesel, aviation fuels. Now, the source of this syngas could be either captured CO2 from the flue gases from the industries, or the green hydrogen. I mean, combining this green hydrogen with this stacked CO or CO2, this can produce a fuel. This is one of the thing we are working on. Then the other possible route is gasifying the biomass. By gasifying the biomass, you generate a syngas, which goes to the gas cell and produces wax, which are upgraded into fuels. Now, one of the topic which was mentioned in the previous slide are green chemicals. Although that is not the subject today, but we also have multiple processes. One of them is atoll, which can convert ethanol into ethylene by green ethylene. And there is another process which converts ethanol into green butadiene, which goes into your tire industry. So those options are also available. And lastly, I'll talk about futurol process, which converts biomass into 2G cellulosic ethanol, which was again the topic in earlier discussions. Now, quickly starting with the vegan process, primarily diesel is divided into two. I mean, there are two types of diesel. One is the biodiesel, which is known by a name FAME, and the other type of diesel is renewable diesel, which is HVO, hydrogenated vegetable oil. Now, because this renewable diesel is produced through hydrotreatment process, so this means it does not have oxygen in it, which is a very big advantage when we talk about fuels, because then there is no blending limit. You can straight away use this fuel into the existing setup without any difference, as well as there are no challenges related to its storage, long transportation. Hence, it has a added advantage over traditional FAME that has been under discussion for so many years. Now, if I quickly look at how it turns out into scheme of things, whether this renewable diesel is actually produced in two steps. The first step is the hydrotreatment of your oils. hydrotreatment of your oils, your fats, and where you remove oxygen and olefin content, and you produced a hydrotreated oil as shown on the slide. Now, it does not meet the required specification yet. So you need to upgrade it, improve its cold flow property by adding isomerization step where the cold properties are met, and the fuel you get is very similar to the diesel or aviation fuels that you are getting now, that you are getting from fossil fuels. Now, we have taken each and every step to minimize the utility consumption in this process, because utility plays a very vital role, as well as we have chosen such a scheme that maximizes the yield or conversion of the oil that you are putting as a feedstock. So yields in this process, let's say for a typical yield is in the range of 80 to 85% for a renewable diesel. And if you are producing aviation fuel, it goes down slightly, and you can produce both aviation fuel and diesel by changing the operating condition of second reactor. Now, being said that, economic viability remains a critical issue for all these processes. I mean, it may take years to be economically attractive, depending on local legislation and local demographics. Hence, byproduct utilization becomes even more important to make such processes more viable. I mean, this is something that has been we have been discussing in the earlier presentation as well. So there are some light components. If you can valorize that, definitely that will improve the economics of this process. Now, in terms of the flexibility, I think this is something I really want to talk about, because when we talk about feedstocks such as biomass or oils or fats, feedstock is a big challenge. And that is why this process has been developed to process wide range of feedstock, whether it is 1G, as shown on the left side of the slide, 1G feedstock. However, then you goes into fuel and food discussion, as well as land use challenges are also there. So now, with the time, we are seeing a lot of interest in 2G or 3G kind of feedstocks, which are like UCO, waste animal fats from food industry, or let's say algae. So all these things can be used as a feedstock in this process. And I think, I'm sure you will acknowledge that feedstock flexibility is very important factor, because it allows you to utilize the lowest price feedstock at a certain time, as well as if availability of one of the feedstock goes down, then you can use the other feedstock. Hence, you can make sure that you are operating 365 days, and you have good reliability, good flexibility. In terms of experience, well, one of the units is already operating in France, at Total Lamed refinery. The interesting thing here is it was an old crude oil based refinery which was converted into this vegan process, with by doing some modification. So this is why when I said, we will going to look at processes which can play a quick fix. You can quickly move on to such processes, because green hydrogen and EVs will take time. So this is one of them, because it can be easily be adopted by just modifying your existing oil and gas infrastructure. Now, other references, one of them is in Poland, one of them is in Spain, and one of them is in vegan or US. Now, moving on to other interesting process, which is known as vegan. So this vegan process is, sorry, this Gesell process utilizes the FT route, as I mentioned in the beginning, which is a very old process. So what happens here is, it converts syngas into fuels via formation of wax. And to generate syngas, you can go for multiple options. So one of the option is, you take out CO2 from the flue gases from the industries, mix it with green hydrogen, make a right ratio of 2:1, put it into the FT reactor and produces waxes. And then it goes for the upgradation. That is one way to do it. The other way to do it is gasifying the biomass, then generating a syngas, and then producing a fuel. These are two approaches that we are working on to produce fuels through FT route, and there is a lot of interest in the market. And for this gasal, we have already set up a demo facility since 2007, which is operating in Italy at Sanazzaro, which is open for visit. I mean, anyone can go there after. I mean, we can arrange a meeting, both in physical form and virtual form. The important thing remain here is the product you get is of a premium quality, which means there is no oxygen, no sulfur, and it's totally paraffinic in nature. Now, as I was talking about the other process, the bio-T fuel, where you gasify this biomass, as you can see in the flow sheet. Biomass is pretreated, it goes into a gasifier. After that, it is again pretreated, syngas is pretreated, fed to a FT reactor, and which is then sent to upgradation. Now, this is again a very extensive and massive project. Why I say that? Because we are talking about 190 million euros of investment. We are talking about, I think, 10 years, more than 10 years of R&D effort. And we have also built two demo facilities for the pre-treatment section that you see here, which is torrefaction, and for the downstream complete unit. And both the demo facilities are in France. Now, this project or process has been developed on collaboration model, which is quite normal in this field of area, where in this realm we have brought different expertise from different areas, partners such as Total, TKIS, IFP, CA, to build this process. Now, as I said in the beginning, again, the product is of a premium quality, even premium than the fuels that you use on daily basis. So it does not have any blending wall. It is of very high quality, no sulfur, no oxygen. And I think important thing to note here is it will help you to reduce greenhouse emission up to 90% if we do a well to wheel calculation. So it's a very significant number. Now, as I talked about two demo plants, one was for pre-treatment, that is at Venet in France, and another one is at Dunkirk, very well-known place, well-known for World War II. There we have put up a second demo facility downstream of pre-treatment. And we are not talking about a small-scale demo plant, it's a full industrial scale plant. And I'm sure you must be interested that why there are two demo facilities. Well, what we have done is carrying a biomass is a very Herculean task. I mean, it's not easy to transport a raw biomass. So one option is at the source of biomass, you can put up this plant only and convert that biomass into a material, fine material like a coffee powder, which will be more easier to transport to the main site where you can produce the fuels. So this is about this bio-T fuel and your this Gesell process. Now we will talk about the third process, which is future-all process. Now, in earlier presentations, speakers have aptly touched upon the 2G ethanol part, so I'll not go into the chemistry side of it. So I'll touch upon what is so special about future-all. Again, like bio-T fuel project, it is a very extensive and massive project because around 90 million euros of investment has already gone in. The project is going since 2008, so 12 and 13 years of research is already there with the process, and it is already commercialized. Again, this process has been developed on partnership model, on collaboration model, where we brought our different partners together from different fields to make a efficient and more viable process. So now I'll not go into the process, but I'll touch upon the key parts that is there in future all, which are its differentiating factors. There are four major parts. The first of them is pre-treatment. So pre-treatment in a biomass to 2G ethanol plant is very crucial because biomass as a feedstock is very tough. It's not very friendly, and there is very high lignin component. So in order to have adaptability and flexibility in your downstream process, you need to have a very robust pre-treatment. And this is why this pre-treatment has been designed based on years and years of research, so that you don't lose hemicellulose, and the cellulose that you get is easily digestible. So this overall makes the process more opex friendly. Then the second main step is production of enzyme at site using the substrate from the biomass that is used as the feedstock. This way, you reduce your dependence on the outside sources of enzyme, as well as your enzyme is more robust. The third step is your fermentation step, where all research has been done to maximize C5, C6 sugars into ethanol to improve its yield and hence the OPEX. Lastly, in the product recovery, we have brought in state-of-art heat integration that we are normally use in oil and gas sector in order to improve its utility numbers. Now, as I said in the beginning, Future Oil is based on years and years of research. Why I say that? Because we have built one pilot scale plant and two demo scale plants. Now, this pilot scale plant is end-to-end solution from biomass to ethanol. While doing the research on pilot plant, we realized that two steps are quite crucial for the overall economics of this process. Those were pre-treatment and enzyme production. This is why these two steps we have put on an industrial scale of 100 TPD, tons per day, which is a very massive size for these two units. This allowed us to validate the results both technically and economically, and based on that, this process was developed. Lastly, one of the recent references has been under execution at Croatia, which is one of the major project of Croatian government, and this is the first biorefinery in Croatia. This is based on agricultural residue, and the capacity is 55 KTPA. So just to conclude, as I said, we foresee that economics will going to play a crucial role, and during this transition time when the other technologies are getting ready, these all processes can play a crucial role in bridging that gap, and hence in the coming years you will see a lot of potential for these processes. So that is it from my side. I hand over the forum to Mr. To the moderator for the to take the discussion forward.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Agrawal. Appreciate that. So I think we are done with all the presentations in this segment. And I have a few questions that I can see on the screen. So I'd be very happy if, yeah, the first question that I see is for Dr. Ramakrishna. Dr. Ramakrishna, the question is on the screen.
Yeah, I have looked at the question and I have also answered it. You know, basically, there is some work that has been going on looking at, setting up smaller plants. Some R&D is going on. And my gut feeling is that, it will be something like a 100 ton per day biomass kind of a plant with about 20-25,000 liters of ethanol per day, and at a capex of something like 100 to 120 crores. So when that becomes a reality, I would believe that there will be make investment into this sector. Even at that kind of numbers that we are looking at, viability would still be a big challenge because if you really look at, even if the second generation ethanol price were to get about 80 rupees per liter, it would still take, the IRR would be quite a challenging kind of a thing. So even not just reducing the size, but we have to think in terms of how do we reduce the capex and operating expenses.
Thank you so much, sir. So with that, that's the end of our session. Anybody has any questions, we can take them up later on as well. For now, I would like to thank all our presenters for their valuable time, and thank you so much for sharing the wisdom with us. Truly obliged and grateful for your valuable time. Thank you.
Moving forward, I think we are on track of time by 16:15 now. Ravin, I think we can start the next session by 4:30 sharp, giving a short break of 15 minutes.
Sure, Mr. Khatri. So we'll convene back again at 4:30 in 15 minutes. We'd be very happy for all of you to join in again. Thank you so much. This is Gasification India 2021, Waste to Energy Technical Sessions. We'll see you at 4:30.
Thank you.
Thank you.